the concept that I took away from Gil's presentation more than anything else was when he talked about how quality of life is the best economic development tool in the hands of cities in the 21st century. And I totally believe that, and that's the whole reason why I'm here living in Hamilton. And for me and for so many thousands of people flocking to the city every year, the status quo is not nearly good enough. We always talk about the potential of Hamilton, but don't seem to do enough to really get there. Because streets are the biggest component of any city, especially in Hamilton, and I've written about this before, I think our best economic development opportunity is already here in this city. It's lying dormant as it faces an onslaught of high-speed traffic, neglect, and other inhospitable conditions. More than ever in this day and age, in the 21st century, planners and urbanists understand how intentional street design affects how we interact with people and experience our city, and how that impacts the local economy. High-quality street design, along with density and diversity, set the stage for dynamic places, high quality of life, local jobs, and prosperity. Quality streets will help improve Hamilton's many commercial corridors, and I'm thinking about how far Locke, Ottawa, and James Street North have come with just a few interventions, some of them big and some of them small. And I dream of a Hamilton with reignited Hamilton's leadership to actively back efforts to design and implement complete streets policies. I believe it's a necessary ingredient to downtown renewal and increasing local jobs, prosperity, and quality of life. And I believe it's exactly what a city that strives to be the best place in Canada to raise a child would do. To introduce our next speaker, someone who is very familiar with implementing change in the face of resistance, I'd like to call upon Terry Cook, President and CEO of the Hamilton Community Foundation.
And vacant. And two things happened. One was he kicked my ass, literally. He then, of course, came up here and ran the Around the Bay race and repeated that. And I would tell you that Tom's 15 years my senior, so it was a rather demoralizing athletic moment. As Foxcroft would tell you, I have the body of an academic and the mind of an athlete. But I persevered, and Tom pointed at this vast waterfront and he said, you know what? I've got two very distinct choices here. I can either continue to manage decline, which is what's been happening to Pittsburgh for the last 20 years, or I can ambitiously recreate a different future. I know that that's going to be bruising. I know that's going to require me to speak truth to power and talk about change from our conventional way of doing things. And I know that it probably means I'm not going to be particularly electable over the long term. I'm not just going to hold office, I'm going to do something good for my community with it. And remember, this is a guy who was the first in his family to go to university. Family had grown up for 3 generations, worked in the steel business, and he imagined a better future. He's going to tell you the story of what he achieved, but in addition to 2 waterfront stadiums, the largest green convention center in North America at the time, all downtown, light rail, a massive investment in heritage and culture, but he changed the trajectory of that community forever. And as I think about the very positive things that we've been reflecting upon in Hamilton, I'm reminded of 2 things. One is that Tom always said to me, there are very unique differences in what we are attempting to do as elected leaders. First of all, the statutory and legislative and financial situation for municipalities here is very different. We don't have all of the tools and the ability to issue bonds and do things that they do in terms of spurring redevelopment. But on the other hand, we have a unified local government, we have a unified school board, we have a collective ability to get around the table and solve problems in a way that is not balkanized like American cities, and we don't have the profound and intergenerational challenges of race that continue to divide American cities. Furthermore, we have Toronto, the most prosperous municipality in the country, right next door. Western Pennsylvania and Pittsburgh didn't have those benefits. I am proud on
it. All worked in the steel mill, and everybody expected that's where they were going to work, and that literally disappeared. And we were a city then that sort of settled into managing decline. High poverty rates. We became the second oldest community in the United States. The second vibrant, exciting places where people want to live, that are going to be entrepreneurial, that understand how to support risk. And how to help finance that risk when people talk about starting a company. Talent is everything. the ability to grow that talent in your universities that we've heard about today, or to bring it in because it's a great place to live, that's the most important competitive advantage you have. And then how you build the partnerships. And I want to talk about that a little bit in the context of Pittsburgh. Go ahead, you can roll it. So this is Pittsburgh today. Go ahead. You can move forward. Pittsburgh in 1983 hit rock bottom. We were Detroit of the United States in 1983. Our unemployment rate was 18%. 50,000 people a year were leaving the region. Half the population of Pittsburgh left. Over a period of 20 years between 1970 and 1990, 500,000 people left Pittsburgh. It left the whole region, moved to Houston and Jacksonville and a host of other places. Fast forward to the last couple years, the Economist magazine and Forbes magazine have ranked Pittsburgh as the most livable city in the United States. How does that happen, that a city goes from the most economically depressed and one of the most polluted cities in America to being viewed as one of the most livable cities? It happens because we made very difficult decisions. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to say up front that this was hugely controversial, what we did. It was a moment of a take no prisoners kind of approach. We realized that we could either be loved or effective, but you can't be both if you're going to make difficult decisions. And we chose to do those decisions. And one of the things we did, and we're a flat broke city. Imagine losing half of your population in 25 years. We're a flat broke city, and we made a decision to reduce our workforce, which was painful, and to devote some of that money to invest in the future. We created a development fund that was our money, ours being the city. We didn't want to rely on the federal government or the state government. We believed that we needed to be self-sufficient, that we needed to be able to control our own destiny and not get in a line and wait. And so we created this development fund. The first year that I was mayor, we went out and bought 1,500 acres of brownfield sites, of abandoned steel mills and old factories all across the city, because we believed that we had to imagine Pittsburgh not as simply declining or stagnating, but a city that would be willing to grow again. And how do we build partnerships with people that are willing to be our partners in that dream of changing Pittsburgh? Go ahead. And so this was Pittsburgh when I'm a young boy growing up along the waterfronts, and this is Pittsburgh's waterfronts today. My mother would always say when I was growing up, two things when we were going out to play: be home before the streets light come on, and never go near the rivers. And she would say, if you go in those rivers, you're going to melt. And now we've hosted the Pro Bass Classic, and thousands of people boat and play on the rivers every day. It is a remarkable transformation for us. You can move it forward. But we've watched also part of that driver, and when you think about building a city, is in the downtown area of Pittsburgh. We had a very bad area. It was sort of our Skid Row and red light district. And one of the leaders, the foundation, the Terry Cook of Pittsburgh, imagined that area becoming the cultural district of Pittsburgh. Of moving it from an area that people avoided to becoming one of vibrancy and excitement. And the foundation itself bought two buildings. One was a burlesque house, and the other was an abandoned old music hall. And it is home to our symphony and our theater now. Over the course of the last 20 years, there were 10 different other performance venues there. And so 2 million people a year come to this area for entertainment. Go ahead, you can move it forward. We built a performing arts high school, and in that area. There are no ball fields with that middle school and high school, but there are great performance spaces. Our son went to this school, and he would come home, Dad, and say, I need $20 because the symphony or the ballet or the opera or theater, if they didn't sell out, would send the tickets over to the school and sell them for $5. And my son would say, I need $20. We're going to stay after school, go to dinner, and then go to a ballet or an opera or the theater. And isn't that the way you want your kids to live? And go back, please. And go forward now, I'm sorry. And so that area, that is an old building and a new building that almost 600 kids go to understand how to do performance or how to do the backstage of lighting. You can go forward. We also had thousands of acres of abandoned steel mills. They look like this. This is where my father worked for 51 years, and they dotted the landscape of Pittsburgh. They reminded us every day of our decline. And we made a decision to buy those mills. We bought this mill where my father worked for 51 years, and where 10,000 men and women made steel. Go ahead, forward. There's now a cheesecake factory. My father would shoot me if he were alive. And there is, go ahead, you can go forward. There's $600 million of investment on that site. We partnered with developers who imagined our dream of what Pittsburgh could be, not what it was. And that's the challenge of every city in the world now, including Hamilton, is imagining what you can be, not what you are today, and how do you get there. And I want you to look at that financing. We put $128 million of public money into this site. The private sector was never going to buy a 129-acre steel mill site in a declining community and take the risk of the environmental issues and deal with the infrastructure to put in there. But so we partnered with those developers and shared that risk with them and got some of the upside. These were not grants, these were loans, and we were betting that we could create value in this property, and we were successful at doing that kind of public-private partnership. We have, I think, in the States, at least in Pittsburgh, much more flexibility at the municipal level in terms of being able to do these public-private partnerships. And I would encourage you to look at that because it gives you a great opportunity to control your future. When you can do the kind of public-private partnership, you can move forward. That this and many other sites show. You can move forward. Go ahead. This is the universities, and we've heard from your universities, and they're saying the right things. And they are, for us, they were the key. The first person I ever heard talk about the universities being the economic engine of a community was the president of Carnegie Mellon University. We partnered with the universities, and they became our economic drivers. Historically, the universities educated kids and did research, but how you commercialize that research and how you build a community partnership. And it's not only what the universities are doing, it's then the availability of venture capital. Of a young student or a professor at those universities, how do they move from having a great idea into the marketplace, and where do they get that capital to happen? In the United States, in fact, in North America, in 3 places in North America, 2/3 of the venture capital was invested. Hamilton and Pittsburgh are not one of those. It's Silicon Valley, it's Boston, and it's the New York area. And so often our universities like McMaster's or Carnegie Mellon grow people, and then they move when they have an idea. Even Mark Zuckerberg left Boston to go to California to start Facebook because that was where the majority of venture capital was invested. And so that whole issue of financing, of how communities come together to help finance the creativity of what you're growing, the intellectual infrastructure that you're growing in your university are very important. You can go forward. And so you have the ingredients here. You're a jigsaw puzzle. You have all the pieces. The challenge is whether you have the community will to put it together. And that is always the challenge of whether you can bring it together in a way that forms a remarkable vision. And every time we tried to do something, I knew there would be 100 people at least when I went to a meeting that would always be against it. And it was always the the wrong size or the wrong color, or it's too big and it was too small, and of course we never had the money to do it. And nothing happens then. Nothing changes. That you sort of go along. Every city in a world can't go along anymore. The world's changing too quickly. We need to reach. You need to be an ambitious city. You need to be willing to reach, not be comfortable where you are. That's Pittsburgh's story. Pittsburgh made a decision to become something other than what it was. There was an intentionality about our decision. There was a willingness to work together. And there was a sense of, this is what we want to be from where we are today. It is a story that you can write too. You have a good start. Keep going. Good luck.
Can you believe Tom just drove up from Pittsburgh this morning just to deliver that talk for us here in Hamilton? That's how much he cares. I saw Tom talk. He came to speak at Supercrawl the Friday night. Martinez Galenzi put on a talk, and Tom gave that talk. It was a longer one. But one of the things that he talked about that really resonated with me was when he said, when you're in a period of renewal, what you need more than anything else is the capacity for complex deal making. And as a lawyer, I thought, that makes a heck of a lot of sense. So when we talk about where we are as a city in our renewal, first of all, you'll if you heard anything from Alan Odette, who's the head of the OCC, he came to talk at our AGM, and he'll tell you the first thing he'll say is if you want to succeed, the last place you can go right now in this day and age is government. Government is tapped out; they cannot be counted on for support for various initiatives. We don't have the capacity that Pittsburgh had. Pittsburgh has billions of dollars of foundation money, and our Hamilton Community Foundation has about $140 million. We don't have the same size business community as Pittsburgh does. Pittsburgh has 125,000 people working downtown every single day, and we have 25,000. So when we talk about the capacity for complex deal making and the capacity to push change and to renew as a community, where is that going to come from? Well, it was all the institutions that you saw here today. And if we can all, as I said at the very beginning, not just row in the same direction, but in the same boat, now we're talking something. Now we have that capacity we need to be able to reach and do some of the great things that we need to do to take advantage of this great. So I'll do my closing now so that we can get out of here quickly. There are so many people that I have to thank. Obviously, all the institutions that came to the table and helped create this day. I think it was also a part of this, the planning for this event for the last year. And I just want to say thank you to all of them. I hope I don't miss anybody, but Richard Allen, Matt Patricelli, Marie Nash, Huzefa Saeed, Rochelle Kavanaugh, Whitney and Diane. Internally, they're amazing. And then I have Dave Baruma from Create Media and his team, top-notch professionals as well, and Soundbox Productions. This was a tremendously huge and expansive production, but I think we pulled it off, and I'm hoping that you thought that this was a pretty good format and change and innovation this year for this summit. With that said, we'll invite the panelists up and Bill Kelly, and I hope to see you downstairs. Thank you.
Come, brethren, and populate. Everything is being evaluated. Where do you sit? Why do you sit beside that person? We're taking notes. The latecomers. Looking forward to this session. I want to thank Keenan and everybody at the Economic Summit for inviting me to do this. I guess I've been a part of just about every economic summit in some way, shape, or form over the last number of years. And as somebody who was born and raised in this community and saw the good old days and the challenges that we've had, and Tom alluded to some of those just a few minutes ago in his speech, it's fascinating to see where we are right now. And the way that we've approached the challenges in the past, sometimes not always with the best vision and the best approach to try to fix the things that were happening, not just in Hamilton, but in other communities too. I had a quick story. A friend of mine who was in the music business, a singer that wanted to really make it and thought that he was pretty good at what he did, and finally got to meet somebody in the production end of things. And I said, well, you know, what do you like? And he says, well, I'm sound just like Bruce Springsteen. And the guy said, we already have Bruce Springsteen. You got to be something else if you want to make it in this business. And that was an aha moment. And I think that's what Hamilton has realized over the last number of years. When we saw the decline from the days when Burlington Street was where everybody used to go to work, and we saw those jobs evaporating, sometimes through no fault of ours, it was just the way the economy was going, and we saw what was happening with downtown. There seemed to be a mode of thinking throughout this community, politically and otherwise too, that said, we got to get those days back. We got to go back. How can we recoup that? Well, you can't. You've got to reinvent yourself. You've got to be something different, something new. And I think the thing that I find most gratifying and what I've seen happen over the last number of years especially, and I think the economic summits are a catalyst for this, is we've come to that realization and we're reinventing ourselves. You know, there isn't going to be another Fluke Transporter or Fox 40. That's fun, and Ron's doing a great job. The other industries, they're there, and they're a key part of this economy, but you've got to grow, and we're starting to do that. And what you're going to meet and who you're going to meet right now on this panel is, for lack of a better expression, I guess, the new face of the Hamilton economy. These are the people that said, you know what, we got to be different. We're not going to go down that same path again. Been there, done that. It's time for something new, something innovative. And these are people that have done an incredible job and will continue to do an incredible job with Hamilton's economy. Always when we talk about Economic Summit, the biggest criticism I hear, common criticism from those, usually, by the way, who don't even attend the summit, they just look at it from afar. Well, where's your track record? Show me the successes. Ladies and gentlemen, these are the successes so far of what we've seen in the last 7 or 8 years here in the city and this economy. By the way, we asked them, when we asked them to be on the panel today, to bring with them a picture that they thought was representative of who they are, what they are, and what they're talking about. No, not baby pictures. We're not going to go down that road. I wouldn't do that to you, staff. So as I introduce you, there'll be a picture that comes up in the back here to each one of the panelists. I'm going to ask them to briefly explain why they selected that, and their stories too. First of all, is Julie Cole. Julie, of course, is the co-founding vice president at an award-winning children's label called Mabel's Labels. Now, she has helped her company bring their products to a worldwide market, gain media recognition, and has won countless entrepreneur awards. A regular contributor to the HLN's Raising America, an influential and syndicated blogger, and a mother of 6, among her other accomplishments.
In all my spare time.
In your spare time. All right, talk to us about what you have done with this company. I first met you, of course, as you were a competitor and a winner, of course, in the Lions Law competition that went on just a little while ago. This is you know, you hope for incremental success. Things have gone so well for you in the last little while. What's happened?
Look, actually, we've been around a while now. We're 11 years old. I can't believe it. We started in my sister's basement, and the reason we came to Hamilton was she was a new teacher, her husband was a new teacher, and they could afford a house on Florence Street. They bought this little house on Florence Street. Then we had the business idea, and we started in that basement. And we outgrew the basement, and in all our business savvy, we didn't go and get commercial space. We made my sister buy a bigger house with a bigger basement. And so then we were in Aberdeen. We thought we'd be there 5 years. We were there 2 years, and then we needed commercial space. And we stayed in Hamilton at that point because commercial, so we wanted to hold on to our people. We wanted to pay less rent. And also we've really been able to capitalize on co-op students from Mohawk and summer students. We have 40 full-time employees in the summer as well as to about 70. A lot of those are McMaster students.
Which ties exactly into what Patrick and the folks from Mohawk were talking about just a few minutes ago. There's that linkage. And I think the word that we've looked for here, and I think the common theme through a lot of what we heard, it's collaboration. We're not going to do this by ourselves. As Chris Murray, the city manager, said, we can't be an island unto ourselves, but even within this community, we need that collaboration. The workforce, training these people for these sorts of jobs, and that's where the educational institutions play such a large part. An iconic institution here in the city, the Hamilton Tiger Cat Football Club. Glenn Gibson, the president of business operations for the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Glenn previously served as chief executive officer in Canada and the Americas for Crawford & Company, one of the largest claims administration companies in the world. His posting was based in Atlanta as the global chief strategy officer. He's led the creation of a number of startup businesses, had a great record, of course, in business. I would think probably was thinking of winding things down just a little bit, and watch out for retirement, Glenn, because all of a sudden things get thrown onto your lap. It's been an incredible run, though, in the time that you've been there, and you've done something rather unique. We know the Hamilton Tiger Cats is a football club. We know that it's also a business entity. I think sometimes people tend to forget that. But it's also a key part of this economy and also a key part of this community. And that's something that I know as a lifetime Hamiltonian that you wanted to kind of bring back and to flourish once again.
I think today we've heard a lot about success, and I think that you look for measurements to determine how well you're doing. And I think that when we look at the selling out of our premium products, so 1,000 club seat level that didn't exist in the old stadium, 30 suites that are sold out, and there's a waiting list now. When you look at that, the reaction to that and the sales of that, what that tells me, and when I look at who's buying, is that the SME segment in the area is looking to invest their discretionary money to get value for money in terms of coming down there, similar to what we've seen at Lock Street.
Well, and it began obviously with the investment when the caretaker Bob Young took over, and of course in investing in the downtown, moving the offices down to Jarvis Street, and that expansion. That we've heard that time and time again. I know the Chamber of Commerce has gone this cutting edge stuff. I'm amazed at the stuff that she tells me. I mean, most of it goes right over my head, but I'm just blown away by the work that's going on right now, and that's right in your wheelhouse. But I mean, you're more than just somebody who knows about this stuff. I mean, you take the business approach to this whole thing too. I mean, this is the technology not of tomorrow; it's the technology of today, isn't it?
Yes, that's right. It's a matter of staying creative, staying adaptable. Our industry is constantly changing. All industries are changing right now, but ours, being so exposed and dependent on technology, is really at the forefront of that. So I'm sure you've heard some stories from your daughter, but everything from our distribution channels now with Netflix and Amazon, the way we reach our audience, everything's changing. And then there's the animation itself, which the process is constantly evolving. The animators are getting better. They're developing new tools. It's a fantastic environment to be someone that comes from a business perspective, where you get challenged and inspired by the creative community, and you have to come up with creative solutions on a business side of things to be able to keep those jobs alive, keep our industry present. I've mentioned it before, Canada is actually a leader in the animation field. We produce more content than any other country in the world, and not many people know that. But the reason we do that is because we foster that talent, and we have the leadership and the people capable of supporting that.
I was down at Disney World a few years ago doing our show from there, a radio show from there, and I got to meet some of the animators, and they actually hand-painted each part of the film to try to bring the color out into some of the classic films, and of course would redo them some years later to try to reinstate them. That was then. This is now. Digital technology is actually the driving force behind this right now. And I'm glad you brought up about the Canadian content in here, because if you pay attention to some of what they call the industry awards, the technical awards during things like the Emmys and the Oscars, a lot of those people that are winning awards down there from U.S. companies are from here.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, Sheridan College has always been and still is the top animation school in the world. Disney donated a large component of the animation wing to continue building that talent. It's not as traditional anymore. It is a lot more digital process. We call it trad-digital. And the tool that makes it traditional and still digital was actually created in Canada, a company called Toon Boom, which allows traditional artists to still draw in a digital platform and still have that connection with the technology.
Why Hamilton? Why did you move here?
We came here 4 years ago. Originally, we started out at the Sheridan campus. We were the first animation studio to set up on the campus. So we've always been after that sense of community, investing in a culture more than anything else. Because at the end of the day, it's about attracting that talent, not only to our studio, to keep it in Canada so it doesn't go to the US and those major production houses. And that's been our secret to success, being able to promote a culture where talent stays. And Sheridan and Oakville was a big part of that. But as we grew, we were faced with the challenge of where ideas were going to be and how they were going to be implemented. So that was why we made that choice.
There's some other common themes through this whole situation. We're going to meet with some of the other folks that are involved in this too. Usually starting up a new business, the biggest obstacle and barrier a lot of people had was you got to go up against the big guys. In animation, et cetera, it would have been Disney and the major studios. Obviously, with what you're doing and what we're going to hear from some of the other folks here too, there are other conglomerates that are doing some of this stuff already. There seems to be an appetite, though, out there now for the small business startups. We see that with indie music now, which of course, 10 years ago, if you didn't sign with a major label of music, you weren't going anywhere. Now indie labels, independent movies, digital technology, small business. Obviously, and that's again right into your wheelhouse where you can tell these people, look with the proper business plan and with the proper support, you can make this.
I definitely want to maintain that small business mentality because it allows you to focus on those details that can maintain that culture. We're right now facing projects that will take us over 200 people, and that'll become a much more corporate type of environment. So what we're trying to do is really promote Hamilton and our success story to the studios that are in Toronto, which are the leading studios. They're the studios that are doing the VFX for Superman, Spider-Man, all the major productions that you see. Trying to promote that they find a home here after follow our success and keep that talent here so that we can share those resources and communicate better.
Let's talk about some of the growth that's gone on here in real estate. Tim Mattioli is with us. Tim, president of the Realtors Association of Hamilton and Burlington, leads a 2,700 member association, third largest real estate association in Ontario. There are some great success stories to talk about. Just as I left the radio station today, Tim, we got a story from, is it the Real Estate Investment Board, one of these national agencies that just named Hamilton as second best place in the country to invest? Actually, it's not because of the growth that we've had. I think we'd just be on Calgary, aren't we?
Yeah, we flip-flop regularly.
We'll go first,
we'll go second, we'll go first, we'll go second. We've been top in Ontario for several years now. What real estate in Hamilton does is phenomenal. You're coming here and the local realtors can sell you space to put your business in. They could sell you a business. If you don't want to start it, we've got them. If you want a warehouse, if you want housing for the people that work in that warehouse, we've got that too. I was listening throughout the day, we heard the economic generators. What a lot of people don't realize, the Canadian Real Estate Association has actually done studies, and they have concluded that there's between $50,000 and $55,000 in ancillary revenue generated to the economy for every home sale. Our stats came out this morning. In May, we had a record May. We did residential sales and condominium sales. We did 2,700 units. That's over $14 million in ancillary revenue coming into the city of Hamilton.
Why are we always ahead of the curve nationally?
Well, you know what? Hamilton hiccuped a lot of times. You've seen it. We've all seen it, where we got that start, the hoarding went up, you had the signs that this was going to happen and that was going to happen, but this time the cranes went up, the shovels went in the ground, and we're going. And we finally reached the point, you have to economically reach a point where if you're going to sell a condominium in a high-rise, you need a minimum $300 a square foot to make it economically viable for the developers to do that. And we reached that point. And people are coming here and they're still seeing, even with that $300 price point, it's still a bargain. Because once the all-day go service comes in, you can get to downtown Toronto faster from Hamilton than you can from other parts of Toronto. And the average sale price for a fully detached home in Toronto is going to hit $1 million this year. The average sale price for a fully detached home in Hamilton is just over $400,000. You can buy a lot of GO Rail passes for $600,000.
You buy your own train if you want. We saw that happen already, obviously, with the Whitten Lofts that were put down there, of course, just after the announcement was made. And Martinez and other people can tell us about what a great place that is. Let's get to some of the other panelists, though, and then we'll get back to the discussion. Tasha Mazza-Kelton is the president and owner of Players Paradise Sports Complex Incorporated. That's that fabulous enterprise you see if you're coming in from the Queen Lee on the eastern side from Grimsby. She oversees all business development, marketing, finance, business operations for a 100,000 square foot professional sports and events facility. Used to work, before Players Paradise, she ran her own Toronto marketing consultancy called Torque Custom Strategy for 7 years. Worked with global conglomerates like
We've got 65,000 players. You've got them ranging from young athletes at 3 years old all the way up to adults. And now, you know, it's very exciting with the announcement of Pan Am Games, and the Hamilton City is hosting all of the soccer activity. And we're getting that because of the passion and the support and the interest from the local community. So that was a big reason why we chose to come here, because the numbers had to work and the community was ripe for it. And, you know, obviously it's no surprise, Bob Young's announced he's looking at bringing a pro soccer team to the community, which would be great as well, and diversifying the sport business landscape as well.
interesting. I'm glad you brought up about the adult participation in this too, because a lot of people may think of soccer, it's a kid's thing. There are a lot of grown-ups that are still into that. Our good friend Dr. Nick Bonas, of course, who still thinks he's 19, is still playing at that age.
At Players Paradise every week.
He's on the north side of 40 now, but he's still out there playing. And a lot of other guys, even older than that. I mean, this is a sport that you can take with you for a long time.
It is. It's a lifetime sport. And, you know, we have over 2,000 registered adult players that play in the facility every season. So, and it's growing. You know, you're seeing the continuation of wanting to be active and healthy. And I think that feeds back into...
Talk about that.
Yeah.
Also on the panel, Dale McDonald, president of Ira McDonald Construction, a family-owned construction, iconic business here in the Hamilton area for many, many years. It was built back in 1941. Dale was born in 1949, of course. Took over the company in 1998. A member of the McMaster Alumni Association, the President's Club at MAC, the Hamilton Chamber of Commerce, of course, and the Burlington Chamber. Lives in the Kirkendall neighborhood, not too far from here. We're going to your place for drinks after? Why not? Okay. I want to talk, dovetailing in on what Tim was talking about real estate. One of the economic factors we always look at, and one of the barometers, is cranes in the sky, in the horizon. And Tim touched on this a few minutes ago. There is a condo movement that's going on here in the downtown core, which I find fascinating and fabulous. A lot of people said, oh, nobody's ever going to want to buy these things. It seems to me as if you guys can't build them fast enough.
Well, there is definitely a major movement in terms of the condo development in Hamilton. And nobody better than maybe the city and Glen Norton, for example, to share some of that future thinking. We've been looking at them at this stage as part of our ICI sector, i.e. the industrial, commercial, institutional market, of which we couldn't be prouder of all the work that we've done with all the institutions that were represented here today, or the majority of them, including McMaster University and McMaster Innovation Park with Zach Douglas and Mark across the road from it, and Royal Botanical Gardens, for example. But again, just as proud of being in position for that private market, you know, private market, like having done Gowlings with Gary Graham and that facility right in the downtown core of Hamilton. But back to the condos, there's no question there's a major movement here, and it all has to do with the logistics, as Tim has pointed out here, in terms of cost-benefit analysis, and we're obviously going to see a lot more.
as evidenced by some of the plans that we've heard even today, too. Let me get to some of the other panelists, and well, I want to talk about that investment in the downtown core. Stephanie McClarty is with us. She's the founder of Reefficient, an online marketplace for companies to buy, sell, and recycle surplus telecom, AV equipment, and receive sustainability reporting. She's grown this tech-based company to a customer base spanning 12 countries in the last year, has ensured over 30,000 products were reused. It's a great success story. The last couple of years, she's been named as one of the best companies globally for environmental performance. But what have you done lately?
I was just in Mexico. Actually, and pursuing a Latin American market for our products.
It wasn't pleasure then, was it?
I had one day on the beach, and unfortunately I got very sunburnt. But
this is a classic example, though, Stephanie. And you and I have talked, of course, from your work over at the Innovation Factory and the work that's gone on and the support that you got from them as well, of identifying a need and looking at something that not too many people are doing and saying, I'm going there.
yeah, this business all started because I got a job in between semesters of my master's, really driving around a company van for one of the major telecom companies and going out into the old network sites and physically pulling out the old equipment and figuring out what to do with it. And at the time, it was just...
...of Sonic Onion Records in downtown Hamilton, a guy who's invested physically and psychologically in the downtown core. We all know about some of the great successes, of course, with Supercrawl. You have been a catalyst for a lot of what people are seeing has happened, especially in the James Street area. When you went down there, it was not a pretty place to go. It was not a place where people said, hey, invest there. What did you see?
What we saw was a very inexpensive, large property. My current landlord, Paul Radigan, Radigan's Cleaning Products on Ferguson Street, when we first moved the business from Burlington, a Burlington basement, to Hamilton, released us out a nice piece of property, a nice rental unit, and then we kept growing and growing and growing, and finally said, listen, I'm not renting you any more space. You're taking up too much space. I don't want one tenant. So he was the catalyst for us to go and look for a property, and we found a property, and we built our business in it.
And it has blossomed from there. John Romano is also with us, talking about businesses that have blossomed. Started working for his dad at a very young age, graduated high school, went to George Brown College. You had a pretty good job in the industry. I mean, things could have gone so well for you. All of a sudden, Better Bitters Brew on Premises has come along, and you have reinvented yourself, really.
Yes, we started as a homebrew store. It was a family hobby, and back in 1992, I quit my job, and my family, friends, parents thought I was crazy. Decided to become a homebrew store. Our homebrew store became one of the largest homebrewing centers in Ontario and second in Canada. We wanted to make better beer, so we decided to become a brewery, just to supply ourselves what's called wort in our industry. Not knowing that the industry was going to change, and all of a sudden 24 for 24, and we know who did that in lovely Hamilton, Ontario, my world changed. Half my business was gone, so I thought to myself, well, how hard can it be? Let's become a craft brewery and start selling beer. Well, you're against the world, you're against major powerhouses. Molson's and Labatt's are $2 billion industries.
Who like to flex their muscles.
Very much so. And people don't realize that they buy their business in many ways. They do stuff within corporations like bars and restaurants. They get the average consumer, they dump 30% of their operating costs into marketing. So you as a consumer get brainwashed to buy certain brands. So we, didn't realize, when that happened, we decided to go out there and try to sell beer, and we didn't get embraced in our own community, which became difficult.
With an effective reuse of an old property, and well, I'm not going to say the rest is history because it's an ongoing story. Stephanie Vey is also here. Stephanie is the Executive Director of the Hamilton Arts Council. She's a Mac grad, also went to the Glasgow School of Art before returning to Hamilton back in 2007. She's with the Hamilton Industry Education Council and curator of the committee for Hamilton's annual Supercrawl as well. So you guys, you and Tim and some of the other people are working in this community. We've talked about industry and what a key part of this, and one of the things that we always used to beat the drum about was that it's...
A number of artists especially that we have in this town, both the ones who've been here for decades, slogging it out for many decades, to ones who are just starting to move here very recently, just in the last few years. What we're starting to see is a real resurgence of creative energy in this town, where artists are really starting to take ownership of their own creative destinies. I mean, we have obviously people like Tim here who, is turning into the James North Land Baron as far as developing so many properties, all for creative purposes. Thanks, Tim. But more to the point, it's creating venues and creating opportunities for people to have a nightlife in this town, for people to have a life after 5 o'clock, that when they finish their workday, that there is a vibrant cultural scene for them to be a part of, where it's a town where their children are going to have access to lots of arts educational opportunities and are going to enjoy quality of life that maybe hasn't been a part of Hamilton for a few decades now, but we are starting to see that come back now.
But you know what, you're giving people confidence for this too. For those artists themselves to know that there's a venue and that there's support for it, whether it's a Tommy Swick or whether it's somebody else who's playing, at Casbah or take it to the next level. I mean, Bill, one of the things that people always talk about when they talk about enterprise and entrepreneurship, those that don't make it, and let's face it, a lot of people that try to go into this field are unsuccessful. They say, well, we didn't know where to go. We didn't know where the support was. We didn't know where the financial backing was. You need somebody who knows, who's been there, done that. And that's what you guys are really doing, isn't it?
Yeah, as a cooperative, we've got about 65 locations across Ontario, about 7 commercial banking centers, but we've, from a small business perspective, all the branches are equipped and do that. If we can't do the loan, a lot of startups need loans, we'll look at alternatives, we'll look at options, we'll provide.
And that's so contrary to the way things used to be. I mean, you used to hear the story that, to get the money from the bank, you got to prove that you don't need it. There's an open-mindedness to what you guys are doing, and you're such a key part to what's happening here in this community. I want to ask the businesses here, these folks here that have made this personal and financial investment, because the business leaders are here, and we've heard from so many people through the course of the summit here today that says we want to be cooperative, we want to be supportive. What do you need? You're the ones that have put the skin in the game right now. What do you need from this community to continue to succeed in what you're doing? Let me go around the table here. Tim?
I think it goes back, it's been said many times over and over today that, collaboration and partnerships is the key. So from where we've taken Supercrawl, for example, with small community partnerships 6 years ago with a $30,000 budget that myself and my business partners funded to start the festival, to an over $700,000 festival this year with a whole pile of community partners and amazing private companies within Hamilton that are giving to us to provide something for the city, and we take that money that they give to us and we turn it and multiply it by 4 or 5 times so that we can lobby for municipal funding, provincial funding, federal funding, and we can bring that amazing.
Is to come out and be a part of it. Go see local shows, go to your local theater, take in a gig, invite artists to be parts of your events, and make sure you pay them in something other than beer and exposure. That, I think, is probably the best thing that you can do, is just to be good consumers of arts and culture here.
And I've been doing that on the show, of course, for the longest time, talking about you guys, and say, I go to Toronto too. My wife and I love to go to theater in Toronto, but we go to Theater Aquarius too, because you know what? It's comparable, it's great stuff, it's world-class stuff, and sometimes you don't know how good it is because it's right under your nose. You're on the cutting edge, sir. I mean, what's going on in so much of the entertainment industry and the business industry right now is exactly where you're going. Where do you see yourself? What do you need to continue to thrive in this community?
What I need the most is connecting the city a little better, both technically, bandwidth.
The more you can create a local procurement policy where you support your local businesses, the better. And having events like the Contacts to Contracts event that the Chamber and the Innovation Factory had, we participated in that, and it was a matchmaking event with business.
Name out there, we're a good alternative to the banks. I think we're better in most ways, and we're absolutely local decision-making. Things like you need a loan, you'll know then and there if you get a loan through the branch manager. It doesn't go to someplace centrally or anything else. So just maybe get the word out there and maybe cut some red tape on some zoning things once in a while.
Tash, your sports industry is such a growth industry right across North America these days. You're in on the ground floor on this. This is only going to get bigger, isn't it?
It is, and I think too, us being a sporting venue, but not just thinking of us as a sporting venue. I mean, that's traditionally what people come in the doors and expect, but we host trade shows, we do military-style team building events, we do birthday
You got a lot
parties.
of room in there.
It's a big open space. I mean, we could do pig runs if that's what was the request was for. So just being open-minded and creative to how to utilize the space.
Let me send it over to Julie now, too, to talk about what's going to be happening with your company. The growth over the last number of years has been phenomenal. You're out of your sister's basement right now. Where are you going?
Ah, yes, where are we going? Well, we have lots of big plans, new markets, new products, but staying in Hamilton. What I would say we would love to see from Hamilton going forward, and I've actually seen a lot of this in the last little while. When we started, we very much felt like we were on our own, but that in the last few years between work the Chamber's doing, Innovation Factory, we feel like we have a lot of peers now. And like with Steph, my friends at Kite String, Cake and Loaf, there's so many small businesses now that we can really bounce ideas off each other. We are peer mentors and we give each other a lot of referrals. And I feel like that's really starting to get fostered here in Hamilton, and I love it. It's really supportive. I'd love to see that continue. One other challenge we have faced is we have had a hard time finding high-level IT talent because of Hamilton. And I think what these guys are doing with Art Crawl, like all of this stuff is so fascinating because it's, you know, we've had people say, no, I don't want to leave.
Thinking about as it worked with regard to our own company, nothing stays the same. So we're continuously investing in, for example, business development. Through the course of this, we have realized our most competitive asset is our corporate culture. Again, touched on earlier in terms of the culture. I see it being the same, no different for the city's corporate culture. And taking advantage of all our resources within the city. There's expertise here. Nothing dismays me more than seeing a little article in the paper this morning about not having any architects qualified to satisfy a local tender. You know, I think that's more a reflection on the pre-qualification process than the architects, but I'm sure there'll be more you'll hear about that. Point being, everything we can do, I believe, to support the culture of Hamilton will all be conducive to that, supporting the next generation, which is going to come up with more and better ideas. And again, reconfirming the collaboration then.
Which we've seen so much of and heard so much of. We're a little tight for time here, gang, so I think we're going to have to kind of wrap it up. Tim, of course, the old thing about Hamilton being a secret that nobody knows about is starting to diminish now. Everybody seems to know about it, and that's only going to help. Glenn, no strike, please. The best of luck. Last year we got to the Grey Cup game. This time we're going to win the damn thing, and I wish all the best to Coach Austin and to everybody else. It's one of the great success stories and one of the great stories of rejuvenation and renew that's gone on here too. It's not just about new business, it's about renewing some of the old businesses, so we've done that. John, continue good luck with what you've done. It's another fabulous story. It was such a pleasure to meet you and have you on our program a little while ago, and to